Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I am Jason, and Jon is here to chat about hockey on the ice, real games, real players, real pucks, real posts.
Yeah, we got to see
What
some
else?
UNO. We got to see some UNO hockey today, kind of.
Was it weird, or did you feel like, oh, this is back to normal?
Oh, I really enjoyed it, and I think I will tell you it was exhausting because I haven't been to hockey since February March, so it's always tough to get back into it. I don't know what it is, but anytime the season starts, when I look at player numbers, my mind always reverts back to the early years of UNO hockey. I have no idea, but like when I see a certain number, like I see the number 14, I think John Rosso, who was on the very first UNO roster, and he's now a scout. I believe he's a scout for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He may not be with them anymore, but he was. And my mind always goes back to those original players, and I have no idea why. So I have to reorient myself every year.
I think we all do that. Teams that we follow,
Yeah.
you get attached to players, and that becomes, the player.
Yep.
Um, For me, good buddy Dan Hinote played for the Avs, number 13. Anyone who wears 13, that's
You just
who
think
they
of
have to
that.
live
Yeah.
up to right now.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
So, because of COVID situations and travel issues and things and everything that's going on, the university decided that instead of an exhibition game, that UNO was going to play a inter squad scrimmage.
Yeah, and
They had
I don't think Jason, I just on a cursory glance, I will admit I haven't looked at all 60 whatever teams that are in Division 1 hockey, but I don't know that anybody is playing an exhibition against a Canadian school this year.
I would feel pretty safe to say not against a
Yeah.
Canadian school. I know that the US
The
18
yeah,
UDT them.
the National Development Training Program.
Right.
Yeah.
They've
They will
got
play those throughout the season. Yep.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that like they've got the gauntlet in the Big 10 if I remember right to begin the season. So they've got like Michigan State and
Okay. So
some schools up there. So
they're making the rounds of the Big Ten hockey
yeah.
conference. Okay, well,
So
that's
I think
cool.
this is close to, really an exhibition as we're going to get, and
Yeah,
we'll see how it goes. We talk a lot of times about things that change and stuff in hockey, and just kind of wondering what our coaches, real feel for, for what it is. It's to one advantage to the scrimmage, the way that UNO did it this year is that your players get more puck touches, right?
yep, yeah,
Like pretty much half your team's on the ice the entire time, so a lot more stuff to go through, a lot more control. If you
yeah,
want to put an emphasis on 5-on-4, then they make a
yep,
lot of random phony calls, like the goalie's getting 5 minutes for checking or something like that.
yeah, and that's what they did today. They had some 4-on-4 action and some 3-on-3 action to try to get a little bit of that in, which I thought was kind of nice. They also did a little shootout practice at the end of the game to get some of that in, and you don't have to worry. Obviously it's not real game action like you would get against the Canadian teams that we typically have a preseason exhibition again, but you also don't have to worry about injuries and things like that.
Yeah, but like you said, is it at game speed? And that's going to be the question. And so
Yeah,
when we get to the end of this podcast and we talk about what comes up next in the first official games of the season for the UNO Mavericks, that's when we'll have to really kind of talk about, do we expect some rust? How long before they get their legs under them? Are both teams kind of um, slow and lethargic, or are they more upbeat and kind of just itching and ready to go? So,
yeah, exactly.
but before we get there, we've got 5 new players and 5 new numbers that we need to have a short little discussion about, don't we?
Yeah, we got to see a lot of those guys at the now. I will say Jason was in the car traveling home from South Dakota because he was at a youth hockey tournament for his daughters. Now, I will tell you, and maybe my memory's going. I don't remember you guys going on the road in September before. This seemed so early for you guys to be out of the state for hockey already.
It is. It's very much an early start to the season. Our oldest made a level travel team, and so she's got us on the road early. We were just in Sioux Falls, and then here in a couple weeks we've got a showcase in Pittsburgh. So we'll make a trip out east and play a bunch of games out there. So we'll be traveling a lot more this year. It'll be fun. It's always good to see your kids play. It's a unique thing, and it's something that I really like. And but unfortunately, that means that a lot of things like talking about the scrimmage, I did that. FaceTime with Bridget, which was amazing that she was willing to FaceTime me so that I could see it.
You are totally falling down in your podcast duties, and I have to tease you about that because Bridget was FaceTiming the game, and it was super noisy, and I'm like, next time you do this, well, I don't think there's going to be a next time because we tweet during the regular games, not during a scrimmage, but we tweet during the regular games. But I'm like, you got to have your AirPods in when you're recording this, because otherwise we were like getting, noise back from you guys. And so, which was probably really annoying to the people around us. We had Connor Willingham, who is a longtime listener of this podcast, who was kind enough to share it. Yeah, he sat with us today, and Jason and Jolene made it for the post-game shootout, which I didn't know you guys were coming, but it was pretty funny when you guys walked up the stairs. So we had that going on. Yeah, we figured
right when we got into Omaha, we're like, you know what? If they have a third period, we can make the third period, or we can at least go and stop by and say hi. So it was fun to at least be able to kind of.
I will tell you, there were some folks looking for you to be at the open skate that happened on the main rink after the thing. We saw some people after you guys left that said, where were they? But anyway, I digress. So we got to see a scrimmage today. We got to see a couple periods. They added time to that second period they play after they Zamboni'd the ice. So we did get to see a lot of the newcomers today, a lot of the new players on the team. A lot of good ice time for them, and some really good minutes and some really good looking players, I think. Is there anybody you'd like to start with in particular? Because I'm going to start with number 14, Cameron Berg, who to me, I thought was the most noticeable player on the ice. Maybe I was just keyed in on him, but a few years ago when he played with the Omaha Lancers, I was excited to see what he was going to do when he eventually made it to UNO. He had a really good season last season with the Muskegon Lumberjacks in the USHL, and I think, as it was pointed out on my message board, he really kind of bloomed with them last year, and he looked really good. He's a player that I see getting a lot of time. I'll be interested to see where he fits in the lineup once the line charts come out next weekend when the season starts. I think he's going to be a really good one. I liked his work in the offensive zone. I think that he's one to watch. The player that Bridget noticed that she mentioned was defenseman Davis Pennington, and he's a guy who's been on the recruiting list for a long time, and I wondered if he was ever going to make it here. He worked his way up through the junior ranks, playing in the North American Hockey League, the British Columbia Hockey League, and ultimately then the USHL, and I think he played for Muskegon too. I'm going to check here on Davis Pennington, but she thought he was the most noticeable player on the ice. She really liked the looks of him. Looked to be an interesting offensive defenseman potentially for UNO. So, and I thought he looked great too. So yes, he did play for the Muskegon Lumberjacks last season.
Seems to be a program that we're getting a lot of kids from, huh?
And they've worked out really well. Nolan Sullivan, Brock Bremer had a stint with them. They're like our farm team right now. So over the years, we've had different teams. I remember back in the day, we got a lot of players from like that '04, '05 timeframe. We got a lot of players from the Indiana Ice back then. Obviously, in the early years of the program, we had a lot of Omaha Lancers on the roster. So yeah, Muskegon's kind of our team these days, and it's not a surprise since UNO assistant Dave Noel Bernier was a coach with them at one point a few years ago.
Yeah, Cameron Berg was tops of my list as well. I
Yep.
think being a another round four pick that's coming in here, coming in as a 19-year-old, so another young kid. A lot of times with college hockey, and
Yep.
having a lot of friends like explain this, they want me to explain it to them and stuff, but it's different with hockey than it is with like college football and stuff, where kids that come like straight out of high school or something are actually kind of the abnormality and not the norm. So he's a little bit more of what you would say is probably in college athletics a normal transition, where he comes out of his high school playing and straight into college level. He's got a few years out there, but I mean,
Yeah,
more traditional than most, I would say.
Yeah,
So,
three or four seasons in the junior ranks. When you see a player like that, we get a lot of 19 and 20-year-olds on this roster, and that's typically what we see. So when we get a guy who's younger, and we'll be talking about one of those players here in a little bit, but it's usually unusual. So yeah, 27 goals, 31 assists last season with Muskegon, and obviously we're looking for good things out of him in the offensive zone this season.
So a pick of the Islanders, I expect he'll make the opening roster.
Right.
And it's gonna just we'll have to see how he adapts.
Yep.
I think recently back to Tyler Weiss coming in, right? Like that's another guy that a lot of expectation. I think a lot of people I know at least argued that they were a little bit underwhelmed by his freshman season, and it just seemed to kind of take a little bit for him to find his legs and find a fit and a feel, and eventually he did, and now he's a guy that we look to on the team and say, hey, he needs to produce, he's expected to produce, and we just, if the team's going to be successful, we kind of need him to be that guy. The other one that really jumped out to me when I looked at the incoming kids and the I say freshmen, not really freshmen in this case, but Brandon McManus coming in as a grad transfer from Minnesota.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see how he's how well he gels. We had Tyconic come in, and he was amazing for UNO really last year. Like
he was
real
terrific.
Rock, and to have him come back is awesome. I would say the same thing for Conley, coming over from Denver. That was another student who came in who wasn't someone that was necessarily like traditionally recruited by the university. And he might be one of those guys. A lot of times these guys are like, they're kids that you recruited that you lost out on, or kids that you kind of started recruiting and then you thought you'd go in a different direction, and you saw them perform well at another institution, and they're given an opportunity. I saw in an article McManus was talking about like why make the transfer and why now, and he said it really came down to where does he have the best chance to make a move to the next level, and he just he's like, I'll have a better opportunity in Omaha to do it than I will at Minnesota. So
yeah, and it was the same thing. Yeah, it was the same thing with Tyconic, and obviously with everything that went on with COVID, it's given some of these guys an opportunity in the transfer portal to continue their playing. Obviously, he's a graduate transfer, so it's awesome. You look at this guy was a 25 point or so guy with Minnesota, and you'd love to see him be in that 15 to 20 point range for UNO this season. That would be huge, and that would be a welcome addition to the lineup for sure. So I, like you said, and we saw a lot of him today too, and I thought he looked really good. And he seems like a guy like Tyconic, as you mentioned, who can just step in and contribute right away in the lineup. So I think he'll be a great one. Obviously, great to get a veteran player, a veteran leader like that on the roster.
Yeah, I was interested to kind of hear. It was intriguing, let's say, to hear Bridget talk about how Mueller kind of stood out to her, because
Yep.
Mueller was one that I was kind of like,
Coming in, this is an
take a
interesting one.
flyer and
So
see how he does, kind of thing. Like, I just don't expect him to really like wow us day one type of thing.
so here's the thing with Mueller. I wrote a profile of him March 2019 on the Mavpuck.com blog. And at that time, he had just turned 16. He just, I think his birthday is in February. So I did not think necessarily that we would be seeing him this soon, because obviously he's an 18-year-old. He would have turned 18 back in February. Sometimes those guys end up playing junior hockey a little bit longer, like we were talking about with Cameron Berg. A lot of times coaches, have them move from the Canadian League sometimes to the USHL because those players could be around here. It's easier for the coaches to keep tabs on them. But he was a player that his coach at the time in midgets up in Alberta said that his hockey IQ was off the charts. He played for the last 2 seasons in the Alberta Junior League, which is not one that we necessarily follow. When we look at the Canadian leagues, a lot of times it's the BCHL is the league that we follow. Or we follow the players that we hope don't go play major junior and end up coming the college route. So he's a little bit of an unknown, and I agree with you, Jason. At this point, his first season with the Sherwood Park Crusaders, he had 6 goals and 24 assists. But last year it was 8 goals and 3 assists. I don't know what you could attribute the decline in production to, Jason. I don't know what that was about, but I think he's one of those players that he's going to kind of grow and come along. Obviously, he's younger than a lot of our incoming freshmen typically are. So I think he's one of those players that you might look at as, being one of those players who can kind of come into his own in the second half of the season, a time when we're going to need depth, with guys getting dinged up, guys getting fatigued as the season wears along. And I think he's going to be a really good player. I liked how he looked down low. I know what Bridget was talking about. So early on in the scrimmage today, I thought he looked good.
Yeah, I worry about, and sometimes they just need to change the scenery, but I know a couple websites had him on a negative trajectory as far as his production. So hopefully, coming in here, a new place, I don't think he's expected to really kind of wow people out the gate. So he gets a year in the system, gets to learn some things, and then,
Yep.
Maybe that's the change that he needs, the new scenery and stuff that'll spark something. And I think it's a similar note with Davis Pennington. He's a kid coming in that is something that UNO kind of needs, especially in the quote unquote modern game, as they call it. UNO needs to do a better job in transition and moving that puck from back to forward, right? And to do that, it's going to take someone like Davis Pennington, but right now, if you feel like you want to, then we'll just lead with that. Otherwise, we can just move on to the next segment. So your decision there.
Oh yeah, let me just throw that in, and you can see how well it fits or not. But
Okay.
what I would say about Davis Pennington is, you look at his career in the juniors has just kind of slowly developed. He goes, he's in the North American Hockey League, then in the BCHL, and then in the USHL, and he's, his assist numbers have been really, really good the last 2 seasons, and I think he's one of those players, again, he's just kind of slowly evolving, slowly coming into his own. So I'm excited to see where he fits as well, because again, a good offensive defenseman. We have a good offensive defenseman and a guy like Brandon Scanlon. So it'll be exciting to have another guy like that on the roster.
So anything else you think we need to point out from the scrimmage?
It's again, when the guys are playing each other, it's hard to get any real feel. The thing though that it's been a long time since they've done this for fans, and I remember years ago in the 99-2000 season, they did one that year at the Civic Auditorium. They did a red-white game because obviously our uniform colors were predominantly red and white, as opposed to the black and white scrimmage, which they did today. And I remember it was kind of fun that time because there was a player by the name of David Brisson, a forward that a lot of fans are familiar with, who kind of stood out in that scrimmage. He was a player that we didn't know was coming in that season, who kind of came in at the last minute, and he turned out to be a great addition to the roster and a really key player the next 4 seasons for UNO. So it's always kind of exciting to get to see the guys warm up a little bit, and certainly exciting before the first season this coming weekend. So we're already jumping into the season.
Something not really related to what happened on the ice, though. On our way out, we found those kiosks near the food stand, and they had QR codes that led you to a website, and it apparently looks like, I don't know if this was a one-night thing or what the heck, but it appears as if you're going to be able to order food from your phone, pay for it from your phone, and then just go to the concession stand and pick up your food.
Well,
is that how you understood that to work?
I don't know. Is this where I get to do my old school moment here? Despite the fact that I love technology, can I do the fact that I normally buy concessions with, cash money, Jason? I don't do QR code. That's fine. It sounds really, really cool. I just wonder how it's going to work in practice. I wonder, I scan the QR code, I stand there and I order with my phone, and then I go up to, how long do I have to wait? Or is it going to be your order hasn't come through yet, so we're going to have to sit there.
It did say it will text you when your food is ready. So
okay.
It sounded kind of slick. It didn't require you to do an app, so I figured you'd be a little bit more on board with this than normal. Cause
do it through the mobile website. Yeah, I'm a little. It sounded like something you would really enjoy. So I'm excited for you to. I'm excited for you to be testing it out.
I will guinea pig it. I'm waiting for Grubhub in Baxter, where I can just order from the concession stand and have someone, hike up to the top at 2:15 for us to give us our food.
I'll tell you what, maybe if something like this works, maybe eventually that will be down the road, that you'll get, food service. It used to be in order to get that kind of service, you had to sit in club seats. So it's a possibility that you'll get to have that anywhere in the arena down the road, but it'll be interesting to see how that works for people. I don't know. Knowing how things go, I'll just be interested to see what I get tweeted out about that. I ordered my food 20 minutes ago. I still haven't gotten my text yet. I'm worried. I was just like we were at this scrimmage today, and I was kind of worried because I know a number of fans who are kind of in my age range, who are in their late 40s, early 50s. And my question about this, Jason, is we had talked about this last week. I guarantee that there will be people next week. We will have played a series after next week against Lake Superior State. I do wonder how many people are going to be getting on the Mavpuck Facebook group or on Twitter. I'm going to get a DM and I'm going to be like, hey, have you heard anything about season tickets yet? I don't know. I do wonder if there are some people who are going to be waiting to get, that notification that there's an event to pick up tickets or something else. I assume everybody knows that we're doing digital tickets, or you can print them off on your printer at home or have the box office print you out cardstock tickets. But I don't know. I hope everybody knows.
I really fear that they don't, because there's been no communication whatsoever from the university on how this is going to happen. And we're 6 days away from the first game.
It almost
come
seems
on,
like
figure this out.
It almost
at
seems
least
like
send an email that says this is the way it's going to happen. I don't know. Give me a phone number to call if I want to complain or something. Do something.
It might be worth doing a follow-up email, because they sent out an email a while back. But it does feel like it might have been something worth, maybe sending out a postcard about, to season ticket holders to check on your My Mavs account, or give you a call, just because, I look at it, they're saving, thousands and thousands of dollars not printing tickets, but they might have benefited from sending out one email, because I do wonder, it's going to be mid-October and people are going to be are we getting our tickets or not? It's always one of those things because we do a lot of stuff digitally online. That's a lot of our business now. In fact, it's most of our business. And so we, send people messages ad nauseum promoting things and reminding people of things. And it's one of those things it's hard to know what to do because obviously we're all kind of in a bubble and we talk about UNO hockey and follow UNO hockey all the time. And we text back and forth wondering if we've heard anything on this or that. So some of that stuff gets cleared off, but you you can never take it for granted that everybody's on Facebook and everybody's on Twitter because as well as I do there are a lot of people who aren't. So it'll be interesting to see what turnout's like certainly coming up. And so that was a little
Well,
bit
and
of a
what the
side
sentiment is going through the season too. This is the
yeah,
first time that we really haven't had that we have this kind of expectation of a season, but not that event, right? Like
right,
I know a lot of people that was kind of the start of the
kickoff,
season
yeah,
was that ticket pickup event, and you got to meet players and you got to see the coach and
yep,
get your tickets and get your your card or something or whatever it
yeah,
was. And there's usually the ability to cross promote. So I think it was a few years ago, the volleyball team was there to kind of glad hand, and
yep.
some of the
The
basketball players
basketball,
were
yep,
there, right? Like, and that's kind of lacking. So I can see how the university doing promotions where it's like, if you can get a friend to buy season tickets, then
right.
you're entered in a chance for basketball tickets. It's because they need a way to cross promote. And I wonder how much of that's going to have to now happen at the games.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. I think more of it will. Certainly, as you just mentioned, they did promotion with this scrimmage event that you could invite fans to come with you. And if they ended up buying a full or half season ticket, you could win I believe, a basketball season ticket. I think we had talked about that last week, and I believe I got clarification. I did not answer that on Twitter like I promised. I got very, very busy this week, so my apologies on that. But you're right. That season ticket event was kind of the kickoff to the season, and now people aren't getting anything. And almost whether they picked it up at the event or they got their tickets in the mail, it was like a reminder that the season is happening. The season's starting, and people would see the tickets, and they'd see those dates on each of the tickets, and they could kind of add those games to their calendar so that they knew that they were happening. And it's also one of those things. A lot of people would be like, "Do we have a series coming up?" And they go look at their ticket book, and they would see that, "Oh yeah, this weekend we have a series coming up." So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Certainly, you remember when they went with the credit card tickets the season after that, which was last season, which was obviously changed around quite a bit because of COVID and they didn't do season tickets. You had heard, like I had heard, that they were going to do printed season tickets. And so ultimately, it sounds like that's not going to be. It's like we recording one segment at a time.
All right.
Ugh.
Gonna be a lot of editing in this one.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right, John. So are we ready to start chatting about the season, the upcoming teams, do some rankings here?
Yes, we are ready to talk about the upcoming season and do a
So
little
we always
ranking.
like to start with NCHC.
Yeah.
I liked last year's format. Go back and forth. What do you think?
Sure, sounds good.
All right. So top to bottom or bottom to top? Which way you want to go?
It's up to you. I'm down with whatever.
Let's go 8-1.
Okay.
I think 8-1 sounds good. So,
okay.
Bottom spot, NCHC, the worst team in the best conference in the country.
I'm sorry to say that I'm going to have to go with Miami again.
I don't remember how many years in a row this has been, and it's one of the few that we typically agree on. But it seems like the last few years, you and I are both on the same page, and that streak will continue because I just don't see anything at Miami that makes me go, wow, they got a lot better.
I know, right? It's too bad. Now, I do think that program, new coaching staff that came in last season. I do think that eventually they're going to be able to turn it around. I just don't know that it's this season. And this is one of those weird seasons where there's a lot of really good returning talent on these rosters. So I have to believe, but I will tell you in the NCHC preseason media poll, they had Colorado College in last place. So maybe they're slowly working their way up the chart.
How about number 7? Because I've got Colorado College at 7, so I guess that wouldn't surprise me.
I have them at 7 too. So it could be either way. You just never know.
Yeah, those two teams, kind of a class of their own, unfortunately, and it's a shame with Colorado College opening their new arena. You kind of, and that's always for me. Actually, that was the kind of piece. Like I was on the fence as to which one to put at 8, and I actually put Colorado College at 7 because I felt like the appeal of having their brand new rink, their home on campus, you know, they're going to be motivated to put in a good effort every time they play at home. And so I just think they'll be a tough team to go on the road and play against.
It's a beautiful looking new arena. And I think, honestly, that facility is going to have a lot more atmosphere than World Arena did. The World Arena, that place was awful to watch. on the bus trip we took there, it was one of those things where you thought if this place is full, it could be cool, but it was rarely full for games and obviously not an on-campus type atmosphere. So I'm with you. That's part of the reason that I had them in 7th place too.
Yeah, that was always hard because it's off campus, and as we know at UNO, it can be difficult to get people to go out that far. So,
yep.
All right, so bottom 2 teams. How about number 6?
This is where it gets more difficult, isn't it? And I have a reputation for making just some wild picks in these. So my 6th place team is going to be Denver University.
Really?
Yes.
So what don't you like about Denver that you put them in 6?
I don't know. I will tell you,
the just media, don't like Denver.
I don't like Denver. I didn't think they looked that great last year, to be honest with you. Now, I will say we're at that point in the season where I really haven't given them a look. I don't know what they do or don't have coming in this season. I do know that they had a lot of young players last season, so it's possible they'll be very good. But I'm picking them in 6th place because they're Denver, and I don't like them. I just, it's one of those things. It's very possible they will finish higher than that. They'll finish in 4th or 5th place, but I'm picking them in 6th place.
They're a younger team on the front end. A lot of their experience and their age comes on their back end. They've got Tuomisto returning. They've got Krona in net.
Yep. I know. It's hard to pick them that low, right?
I know. Like Bobby Brink, I think the big thing for me with Denver is their size. I worry a little bit about their forwards kind of getting pushed around, but even at that, like it's Denver, it's hard for me to kind of say, they're going to have 2 bad seasons back to back. They really didn't have that. I mean, they didn't have a great season.
Right.
But it wasn't terrible. I just don't see them moving that direction. So I struggled with this one a lot. My 5 and 6 picks I could see these. It's kind of like Colorado College and Miami. Like I could see these 2 teams being either which way. Ultimately, I landed on Western Michigan.
Yep.
I think they've got a good base. I don't know that depth happens, and I think it's just like last season, one injury and the team goes from competitive to the cellar.
You could be right on that.
There's some things that just sit bad with me, like looking at the team and then the things that I've seen last year, and I don't know. It was just a kind of a personal feeling there. But I have UNO just above them in 5, and I wouldn't be surprised if especially if Western Michigan comes out of the gate hot and puts up points kind of the way UNO did last year, that UNO finds themselves in, for me at least, in that sixth spot. And Western Michigan leapfrog them, who knows, maybe into a home playoff series in a fourth spot. But
well, I had
Western Michigan in 6. I have UNO in 5. Who do you have at 5? You had Denver at 6.
Yep, I've got Western Michigan in 5th.
Okay.
And I've got North Dakota in 4th place. The look on your face right now. Yep.
You've got North Dakota barely making a home playoff series.
Yep. That I do. It's happened before. It's happened before. I don't know. I feel like they lost a lot during the off season. That's my thought.
I would agree with that. They did. They seem to be one of those teams that it doesn't seem like what they lose. They always seem to find something to replace it. So,
right. And I think if you look at last season, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think for all the teams in the conference, I don't just think this is them. I think that there was a lot. There are just a lot of those names that we got to know on this team over the last 3 or 4 seasons are gone. Just scrolling through their roster, I'm not seeing a lot of familiar names. And that's why I think they'll be down a little bit this season. Just my personal opinion. You got a lot of freshmen and sophomores on that roster. And so, I don't know. A lot of the big names in net, the blue liners, the skaters up front, I don't see the names that we saw before. That's not to say that they won't be really good. It's just to say that they're not the type of team that I think is going to be at the top of this conference. And again, I could be wrong, but that's why I'm picking them in 4th.
So let's recap to make sure they have this down right.
Yes. Okay.
We agree Miami at the bottom.
Yep.
We agree CC at the 7.
Correct.
At 6, I have Western Michigan. You have DU.
Yep.
At 5, you have Western Michigan. I have UNO.
Yep.
And then you gave us your 4 pick at North Dakota, correct?
I did. Yep.
Okay, so I owe my 4 pick.
Okay.
And I have DU as my 4 pick. I see them. I can see them riding Corona to a 4 seed. I don't see them riding him any further than that.
Right, he's a great goaltender. Certainly, goaltending is the thing that will win for you down the stretch in February and March. So,
now
he's
that's
a great
said,
guy. But
just like we saw, Western Michigan was an entirely different team last year. With why is his name just like I seriously just had it in my head and now it's gone. Got injured in the pod. What the heck? God, I hate when this happens to me. In any case, their top goaltender goes down, and that just totally changes the complexion for Western Michigan. And the same thing can happen for DU with Corona. If Corona goes down, if he gets hurt and he misses any significant stretch of time, I have a lot less confidence in Denver's ability to make hay and get points. So
I agree with you.
If that happens, you're picking them at 6 is for me almost a dream situation, because if they lose him, I wouldn't be surprised if CC leapfrogs them or something ridiculous like that. So
right,
who knows?
Yeah, you never know. Know.
But I'm planning on this team as it sits, no injuries, and that's kind of where I put it. So,
yep.
So that got us into playoff teams. You have North Dakota at home in the first round. I have a DU home at first round. I actually have. Now I just realized this. I have UNO going to DU again. So hey.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Jason. For those who don't know, we've been having technical difficulties, so this is the point where right after Jason said that, the the FaceTime call should have just completely frozen at that point. Where no, I don't want to go watch them play at Denver. I'd much rather see my matchup, which is Western Michigan going to the Ralph to play a first round series against North Dakota, which that would be a very interesting series.
Well, you talked about my issues this season with having to be gone for youth hockey and stuff.
Yes.
This might be the point that hashtag fire Jason from Mavpuck.
Hashtag fire Jason. Yep. We're going to be including that with, hashtag Mavpuckcast, hashtag fire Jason for picking a former DU season ticket holder here. But
yeah, you can make it trend, and who knows, maybe
let's
it'll
hope
happen.
Jason jinxes them like he does, non-conference opponents with the national championship pick. So we're up to 3 now.
We got 3. So let's go 3.
Okay.
Let's hear. You've got. We'll do. Here's a short recap. On your board left is St. Cloud, Duluth, and Omaha.
That's
correct?
Right. Yes.
My board left has North Dakota, St. Cloud, and Duluth.
Right.
Okay.
So in third place, I'm going with the University of Nebraska at Omaha Mavericks. I'm very excited. I think they could potentially finish higher than that. Here's my feeling on UNO, and this is if there are any UNO players out there listening, coaches, etc. I mean, they're busy. They're getting ready for their first series of the season, so I doubt they have time to listen. But here's what I would say. Championships are not won in February and March. Conference championships are competed for in October, November, and December, depending on when the first conference series is. This year it happens to be in early November. Those games, if you look at UNO's games in the first half of the season, they have a real opportunity to come away with some good conference points. And that's one of the things that they have to be able to do. You can't wait until January. And here's why UNO can't wait until January. Because they start off January with a series at home against Denver. Then they go on the road to North Dakota, and then they have a series at home against Minnesota Duluth, all top teams in the conference. So UNO has to start to chip away and build up points in the conference standing in November and December when they play teams like Miami. They go to St. Cloud. They play Colorado College, and they go to win Western Michigan. That's the time when they have to be able to beat those teams. And so if they can get the job done early, and I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated against those teams, but if they can have a good performance against those teams before the first of the year and put themselves in a good spot in the conference race, yes, I think they can finish second or third in the NCHC this season. Just mainly looking at the experience on this roster, the depth on the roster. I think that there's an opportunity to do that. So that's why I'm picking them. But they can't be complacent. They can't try to do it in January because they'd have to kind of run the gauntlets to start off the year, and they don't want to get themselves behind the 8-ball.
For me, I'll say top 3 I could see falling in any order.
Yep.
So this is really for me like kind of almost a guess, sometimes it really is just a gut feeling as to how things are going to fall.
Okay.
North Dakota hasn't had a lot of adversity in recent years. And I think this is the year that they might have to struggle a little bit to get where they expect to be and where they want to be. So with that, I have my number 3 as North Dakota.
Okay.
Like you said earlier, they did lose some things. I don't know about the pieces coming in. I have faith that they'll work out because it's North Dakota and they always seem to. But I just think there's going to be some growing pains this year, and so that's where I'll put them. So I will finish out my bracket first, and then I'll let you finish out yours.
Okay.
So I still have on the table St. Cloud and Duluth, and I'm actually going to put St. Cloud as my top team.
Okay.
I still think that one of the biggest home ice advantages in the conference is St. Cloud playing on an Olympic sheet. And I still hate that schools are allowed to do that. Like I hate the idea that the playing field itself differs depending on where you go. But I think they use it to their advantage, and I think they're going to here. And so I have SCSU at 1 and UMD at 2.
I have the same order for both of those teams. And the reason I have St. Cloud in first is that I think there's a lot of that kind of, unfinished business mentality. If you look at the, NCAA championship game last season, it was pretty exciting to see him in there. Um, you look at a lot of the returning players, guys like Easton Brodzinski, Kevin Fitzgerald, Yami Kranola, etc. They've got a lot of really good talent back on that roster. And so I don't see a reason why they can't make another run. Duluth, we obviously have up there because they're Duluth, and that's a team that, they, under Scott Sandelin, they're able to find a way. His early tenure there didn't start off, magical or majestic, but I got to tell you, in this conference over the years, they've been very, very good. And when they get to the postseason, they find a way to win. And we were just talking at the scrimmage today about that 5 overtime game that they played against North Dakota in the NCAA regionals last season, which was a heck of a game. That probably should have been the national championship game right there. Quite honestly, yeah, great game against those two teams. So again, that's why I have those two at the top. But I think UNO can do something. Obviously, they haven't had a long history of success in recent years, but they can find their way back into the NCAA tournament. I'd love to see them finish third in the conference race.
Gonna put you on the spot here then.
Yep.
In the past, 4 or 5 teams out of the NCHC have made the NCAA playoffs.
Right.
Do you feel question? Okay, 2-part question.
Okay.
Part 1, do you think 5 teams of the NCHC make the playoffs? And part 2, whether that's 3, 4, or 5, whatever you think makes it out, what are those teams that make the NCAA playoffs?
Well, that's a very interesting question because I believe I had St. Cloud 1, Duluth 2, Omaha 3. Did I have North Dakota in 4th? Dakota in 4th. And I had, and I know why you asked this, because I had in 5th, I had Western Michigan, and there's always an unknown. They're like the Rodney Dangerfield of the NCHC. They just don't get a lot of respect from any of us. They've had a tremendous amount of success, but you do wonder. You're like, is it going to be kind of like last year where there's a little bit of debate as to who should get in? So you're like, is it going to be the top 4 teams, and then like Denver sitting down there lurking in 6th? Is Denver going to make a little bit of a run in the NCHC playoffs? I hope not, because they would presumably, if they finish 6th and UNO finishes 3rd, they play each other. They come here to Omaha to play their first round series in the NCHC tournament. So, let's hope they don't come and upset us in our first home playoff series in years. I don't know. That would be very, very interesting. I could see Western Michigan making it in again. In fact, I would prefer that. So yeah, let's have that happen. And isn't there a regional out there in Aurora, Colorado again?
I believe you're right. I believe they said they're going to put one out there again.
I was going to say I wondered if that was 2 years in a row. So I can't remember for sure. So I'm sure
I can't remember if that or if it's because of COVID. They just kind of I know a lot of leagues and stuff just punted everything down 1 year to say like, all right, we're going to make COVID year just happen. Like, we're just going to figure out a way. And then, you had your spot, so you'll just have your spot the next year instead of this year type of thing. So, I don't know. We'll have to look that up and see.
Yep.
I think 4 is a lock. I think the top 4 in the NCHC are in. So, for me, St. Cloud, Duluth, North Dakota, Denver. I have UNO getting in. I think that it's gonna take a run. They're gonna have to win a playoff series. They're gonna have to go on the road to DU and upset DU to do it. But I think they've got it. I think they've got enough in the tank to be able to, impress those selection committees and get in. And I think that they want to give them another shot at it after everything that happened against Minnesota last year. So that's my feeling. That's what I'm going to go out there and say. I find it interesting that we both have them playing Denver. One have us going there, one have us going here.
I'm sorry, it is Loveland, Colorado. And it is funny that we both have them playing, but in a different scenario. And yes, the regional was in Loveland, Colorado. I don't know why I said Aurora, but yes, so they will be back it'll be Albany, New York, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Loveland, Colorado, Worcester, Massachusetts, and then the Frozen Four is in Boston this year. So, or this, I guess that would be next spring. So,
shipping up to Boston.
Yep, UNO does everything significant in their program in the state of Massachusetts. Our first NCAA regional was in Worcester, Massachusetts. Our first Frozen Four was at TD Garden in Boston. And I would say it would be, really fitting if we are going with that pattern to have UNO win their first national championship in Boston, Massachusetts. So there you go.
So we always like to make a national champion pick.
Yes, we do.
So what do you want to go out there and say something? Do you want to toss something on the field to start with?
Last year we forgot to do this. In the previous 2 seasons, I had picked Minnesota Duluth, and I believe they got to the championship game both of those seasons, if I recall correctly. So the question is, do I want to pick Duluth? Again, do I want to just stick with the tried and true, or do I want to go with something different? I will tell you that a team that a lot of people are impressed with early on in this preseason is Michigan. We didn't get to see them in the NCAA tournament last season. They had to leave their regional site because of COVID restrictions. Something had happened there, so we didn't get to see them play and see how they did in the tournament. The team has definitely started to improve to their old form under Mel Pearson. Do I want to pick Michigan winning the national championship? No, I don't want to pick Michigan winning the national championship. Am I going to pick Michigan winning the national championship? Yes, I'm going to say that the Michigan Wolverines win the national championship. I can't believe I'm going against my conference, the NCHC. I don't know. Jason normally picks the Big Ten and Hockey East teams, and I'm like, were you going to pick Michigan, Jason? Just tell me. If so, I'll go with Duluth.
You just wanted to get it out there so I couldn't pick them or something? Is that what you're saying?
No, I want you to pick them. I just go ahead. We could have the same pick. We could see what that does to the karma. But yeah, I think it was Quinn Sebesta who mentioned Michigan on my message board. So he wasn't sold on them, but I saw him mention that, and I read his brief analysis. So yes, I'm going to.
It seemed like every pick at the draft, at the NHL draft in the first round was he's headed to Michigan next season. He's headed to Michigan next season. So I think a lot of people got jaded by that. It was striking to me to see the writers poll on USCHO and like I don't think it was all of them, but it was like almost all of them had picked Minnesota.
Oh, okay. That's, you know what? Under Bob Motzko, that's not a bad pick, actually.
And if I want to keep my streak of like the team that I don't think is going to win it this year, picking them so that they like really, they're probably going to win it the next year, because I did that with BC and I did it with Wisconsin, and it's like, gosh, they seem to have a better season season after I picked them.
Yeah.
And my Wisconsin pick was based a lot on, you look at their incoming talent,
Talent.
and it
Yep.
was one of the best recruiting pools in the country that year. And I look at
Absolutely.
Michigan's and I say the same thing. They probably have one of the best recruiting classes talent-wise coming in this year. But I get the feeling like this is not their year. That those guys are going to need some adaptation period. Now, the one thing that worries me is if they start getting it towards the end of the season, especially in the Big Ten,
Yep.
when you're
Yep.
in conference play again,
Yeah.
where night in, night out, like I can see Michigan doing some serious damage the second half of the season. Going in as like a mid seed into the tournament and just being one of those like perennial mid seeds that just they come in kind of underwhelming and then they just
Yeah.
blow teams out and you're kind of going like, where do they come from? So
Right.
Providence did it for a while there. That was their MO, to come in kind of under the radar and just shock teams. They did it the year UNO went to the Frozen Four. So yeah, I can see why people are infatuated with Michigan. I look at the conference and I'm kind of with them. Like, I still think Minnesota's the better team out there.
Right.
And you've got Notre Dame and Wisconsin you have to get through. So it's just not an easy conference to play in.
Well, and you never know, like a team like Penn State under Guy Godowski, they tend to be solid even if they're not in the mix in the postseason. So, yeah, I don't know. That conference is not. I mean, I follow them, but I don't know. A lot of seasons recently they've been underwhelming. So I don't know. But now that Bob Motzko has Minnesota going again, it could be interesting this season.
So I'll say that I made my pick thinking, oh God,
that I was going
to pick the same thing as me. And this is going to be the most boring segment of the podcast. So I'm really happy that you went out there and didn't pick an NCHC team, so that the year that I pick an NCHC team goes down in the record books as the year that we didn't agree, even on the same conference.
I have Duluth. A safe pick. Oh, you've got Duluth. See, I thought you might pick St. Cloud.
Here's the deal. Like, I think that the teams that go in with number one seeds have this expectation that's put on their shoulders. And I always like seeing those years where the mid-tier teams get in and do some damage. And I always enjoy those games when the 4 seed knocks off the 1 seed, or when a 3 seed knocks off a 1 seed, something along those lines, right?
Yep.
I did have an inkling to pick Wisconsin in this kind of same situation, so I'll put them as like my number 2. But I really think that Duluth knows how to win these things, clearly.
Yep. Yeah.
And they play in one of the best conferences. I've got them coming in at a mid seed, and I just think that they're going to be able to go in and lean on their experience, lean on their development through the season, and that kind of forged through iron aspect that the NCHC and the Big Ten have. There's some sleepers out there. How will UMass do again? Boston University should be better. Boston College has a competitive team. I've heard rumblings about Northeastern being a little bit of a surprise, and UMass Lowell having a comeback year. So those two teams could be ones to kind of keep an eye on and watch. And, one of those teams gets hot, and that could be a dangerous team to see, in a playoff. Yep. But I wanted to pick one of those like mid teams that I had going into the playoffs. So.
As you know, it was hard for me not to pick Duluth. As I said before, Scott Sandelin always has them ready and prepared to play. You look at some of the returning players on that roster, guys like Louis Rail, Cole Koepke, the Cates brothers. A tough team to play. And sometimes they don't always look that impressive down the stretch in the conference, and you're kind of scratching your head and you're like, will they fizzle out in the postseason? And something about when that team gets into the NCAA tournament, it doesn't matter where they're placed or where they're seated, they seem to find a way to get to the Frozen Four. And obviously, like we talked about earlier, they had that epic They had that epic 5 overtime game against North Dakota last season, and that was a fantastic game and some good returning goaltenders. Ryan Fanti is the guy who's returning in net this season. Um, he should be better this season. I mean, they're a really really interesting team. So a lot of young players, but a lot of returning talent too. So that's who I wanted to pick. But I'm gonna do the Jason. I'm gonna pick Michigan, and then we're gonna they're gonna start off like 0-4, and we're gonna be like, what the heck were we talking about? So there we go, role reversal. We'll see what happens. Maybe if I pick them, they'll go all the way. So it'll be interesting to see.
So next weekend, season starts October 2nd and 3rd. It is a Saturday-Sunday series, so those of you
Yep.
who listening, don't show up on Friday because I don't know what you're going to see. Boxing match or something, who knows?
We just hope people show up this weekend.
Disney on Ice? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's at Baxter on Friday. It's not UNO hockey. So show up on Saturday, show up again on Sunday.
And I will tell you, for those of you who aren't going to be at the games, who are long distance, who are either listening to the games on the radio or listening and watching on NCHC TV, UNO has a new play-by-play guy this year named Casey Rail. I think it's Rail. Maybe he pronounces his last name Roll. I don't know. I'll have to do a little bit more research. He's got some demo material on his Twitter account that I'll have to check out. But a new young play-by-play guy. It's hard to believe that this is only the fourth play-by-play person that UNO has had for their hockey program since the program started in 1997.
So they come to Omaha.
Yep.
Set the stage. This is right now, last time I saw, they were a top 15 team. Expected to be.
Lake State had a lot of success last season in what was then the WCHA. Now realignment has happened in that conference, and they are now part of the new CCHA, resurrected from the ashes. It's so weird to see CCHA, all conference preseason picks and things like that listed on Twitter. It's, when the conference was dormant for so long, but they are back. They had success in the postseason. They had success in the NCAA tournament last year. It's great to see Lake Superior State on the comeback trail. And I think this is going to be an interesting matchup for UNO. But I like UNO's chances. I think UNO playing their first 10 games at Baxter Arena this season is going to be really beneficial for them. And I think that this is an opportunity for them to make a statement at home early on. I'm going to say UNO sweeps this Saturday-Sunday series against Lake State. And we're going to start off the season 2-0.
So two fairly even matched teams, and you think we can come away with both of them, huh?
We're gonna find out how, with no interconference play last season, we're gonna find out how closely matched they really are. But I think UNO is a lot better than people think going into this season. So I'm gonna say we sweep this series out of the gate.
I like your optimism. I do not share your optimism. I don't know. I think it's a difficult thing to do, to come out, especially after everything that was last season and the odd stuff you had to go through last season, and expect a team to play against another team that's kind of on that same level and to be that successful. So I have a split. I have us winning the first game. I don't know that I could see us winning and tying. That's where I go.
Okay.
Kind of like, especially if we win that first night. I think if we lose that first night, that it becomes an entirely different Sunday night game. But I'm gonna go win in a, let's say, win in a tie. I just don't like. There's a lot of things I like about Lake State. I think they've got a good coaching staff. and that's one thing that can kind of get you through stuff. Mike York is one of their assistant coaches, and he's impressed me everywhere he's been. So I don't know, like Witten's their head coach. The alignment stuff kind of throws a monkey wrench into the whole thing of like, how are they going to deal with, the teams that they are used to playing against, but also, this new wild card in St. Thomas.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, I don't know how that will play out for them, but I expect that they'll still be a competitive team, and they're a team that will come to Omaha prepared and ready to beat Omaha in 2 games and sweep them out of their home arena. So we can't come into this week lazy and thinking that, something's that we're in a better conference or something like that. Some of that attitude stuff get in there. So hopefully.
Well, certainly we can't take any of these early season opponents for granted, or we could end up getting bitten in some of these early season games. Yeah, like you said, this Lake State team is intriguing. This was the team. They were kind of an interesting story in the NCAA tournament. They have a number of European players on the roster. I mean, they've got several European. I think they have 3 guys from Sweden on this team. They got guys from Belarus, France, Slovakia. Yeah. I mean, they're all over the place, and I think that that's great for that program because they've had their struggles in the past 20 plus years recruiting good players from North America. So I think the coaching staff has done a terrific job. It's going to be an interesting matchup for UNO. I'm calling the sweep. I was analyzing their roster while Jason gave his pick, so he can reiterate it here for you. What did you say? A win and a tie for UNO?
Win and a tie, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. We're both zoning out here, so let's wrap this thing up. So hopefully we'll see you guys at the series. If not, listen on the radio, listen online, as we mentioned earlier. And until next time, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.